Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you've been striving for, every ambition you've sacrificed, for every decision you've made, wasn't really your own. It was never a path that you consciously chose. In fact, it wasn't even your idea. It was someone else's. The thoughts that you believed were uniquely yours, the dreams you clung to so desperately, were not born from your desires, but from a script written by invisible hands long before you took your first breath. How does it feel to discover that you've been living someone else's life? You might think that you are in control. You might believe that the life you lead is yours because you've made all the right choices. You work hard. You plan. You carve out a path based on what the world around you tells you is valuable: success, status, material wealth. You might have even told yourself that this is what you've always wanted. But as you take a step back and examine it closely, you realize the uncomfortable truth. Your aspirations are someone else's aspirations. Your goals are a reflection of a society that has meticulously crafted an image of what it means to be successful, and you've been chasing it without ever questioning its origin. Here lies the paradox. You think you're free, but in reality, you're living someone else's idea of freedom. The world tells you that the key to happiness is the acquisition of things: money, possessions, status. It tells you that fulfillment lies in climbing the ladder, in seeking approval from others, in perpetuating a cycle that seems to have no end. But when you pause, when you finally have the courage to look beneath the surface, you begin to see it. The dissonance, the emptiness that gnaws at you, even when you're surrounded by all that you've been told will bring contentment. Could it be that the life you've been building, the one you're so fiercely protecting, was never meant to be yours? And if that's true, what does that say about you? The truth is, the majority of us have been unknowingly living out the desires, fears, and projections of others. From the very beginning, the world has shaped our lives with its narratives. Family, culture, media, education, all of these forces have created a mold, and we've been fitting ourselves into it without realizing that we were never given the choice to create a mold of our own. But here's the haunting question. What if this realization comes too late? What if you reach the end of your life only to discover that the path you walked was never really yours? Would you feel a deep sense of regret for the life that you didn't live? Or would you be able to forgive yourself for not seeing the truth sooner? Now, picture the weight of this truth sinking in. A small, suffocating fear begins to crawl up your spine. What if everything I've been doing, everything I thought I was achieving, has no real meaning? You may feel a sudden, sharp disillusionment. It's a terrifying thought, but it's also liberating in a strange, unsettling way. Because once you see it, once you recognize the vast web that has been spun around your life, you can never unsee it. The question then becomes, what are you going to do about it? The life you thought was uniquely yours may have been borrowed, but does that mean it's too late to create your own? If you are truly living someone else's life, how did you end up on this predetermined path? To understand this, we need to dive deeper into the psychological and philosophical forces that shape our perceptions of choice, freedom, and identity. Why do we unquestioningly accept a life dictated by external forces, even when it's built on a set of values that may not align with our deepest needs? The truth is, this isn't just a random occurrence. The problem begins long before you were even born. It's woven into the fabric of society, passed down from one generation to the next, and reinforced through every system and structure around you. The forces that shape your life are invisible, insidious, and deeply ingrained in your psyche. The first place we should look is Carl Jung's theory of the collective unconscious. Jung argued that there exists a shared reservoir of symbols, archetypes, and memories among all humans, one that is inherited from our ancestors. These unconscious symbols inform our behavior, thoughts, and dreams, often without us being aware of it. Imagine that your desires, the ones you believe are uniquely yours, might be rooted in a deeper, collective pattern that is passed down through generations. Perhaps what you think is your individual desire is actually an archetype, a model of success or happiness deeply embedded in the collective unconscious. Take a moment to consider, are the dreams you're chasing your own, or are they part of a larger narrative? Do you want wealth because you desire freedom, or because the culture around you has taught you that wealth equates to success and happiness? This pattern is exacerbated by the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche, who famously proclaimed that God is dead, a statement reflecting the disillusionment of modern man with traditional values. Nietzsche saw the decay of conventional religious structures as leading to an existential crisis, where people were left without a meaningful framework for understanding their lives. Without the guiding force of traditional values, society sought new idols to worship: money, success, power. What Nietzsche warned about was the rise of a new herd mentality that enslaves individuals to a set of values that they never consciously chose. And today, you can see that herd mentality at work. We are all conditioned to chase after the same illusory markers of success. But how does this work psychologically? In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl delves into the human need for purpose. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, discovered that the key to enduring unimaginable suffering was not external comfort or material wealth, but a sense of meaning. Yet we live in a world that increasingly disconnects people from their own sense of meaning. We have replaced genuine purpose with a compulsive pursuit of external validation, approval, fame, and material wealth. Frankl would argue that, without true meaning, our lives lose their depth. Instead of pursuing what we truly value, we pursue what the world tells us we should value. Perhaps the most disturbing reality is that the pursuit of this external validation has become so ingrained that we no longer recognize it as a form of enslavement. Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, viewed the human condition as inherently trapped in a cycle of will, the constant striving for satisfaction that can never be fully fulfilled. In his view, we are perpetually caught in a cycle of desire, never fully content with what we have. This is the essence of the modern condition, a never-ending chase for more, for better, for different, without any real understanding of why we are chasing it in the first place. This psychological wiring is reinforced by societal systems, such as education, media, and culture, that propagate certain ideals about what success looks like. These ideals are so pervasive that they become indistinguishable from the idea of success itself. For instance, think about how the education system teaches you to follow a strict path: school, college, career, retirement. From a young age, you're conditioned to believe that this is the only legitimate path, a path that leads you to success. But who decided this path for you? Who defined what success looks like? Jean-Paul Sartre's existentialist philosophy offers another critical insight here. Sartre contended that humans are condemned to be free, meaning that we are constantly faced with the responsibility of defining ourselves and our lives. Yet many choose to live in bad faith, as he put, by surrendering their freedom to the roles that society has prepared for them. When you live in bad faith, you deny your own ability to choose, to define who you truly are, and instead, you conform to a predefined identity. In Sartre's words, the more we try to escape our freedom, the more we fall into bad faith. You may feel that the life you're living is not your own, but it's so much easier to go with the flow of societal expectations than it is to stand up and assert your own freedom. How do we become aware of these influences? More importantly, how do we break free from them? This hidden problem, living a life shaped by forces outside of your awareness, can feel almost inescapable. The psychological structures, cultural conditioning, and historical forces have been designed to shape you into a mold that doesn't necessarily align with your deepest self. The question is, when will you realize it? When will you wake up and ask yourself, what do I truly want? And how much of it was shaped by the world around me? This is the heart of the problem. It's not just that you are living someone else's life. It's that, for much of your existence, you didn't even know there was another way to live. And this realization, though unsettling, is the first step toward reclaiming the life that is truly yours. You've now seen how the world shapes your life, how the paths you follow may not be of your own choosing, and how your desires might be deeply conditioned by external forces. But there is an even deeper, more unsettling layer to this issue, an undercurrent of consequences that silently permeates your existence, shaping not only your personal life, but also the society around you. These consequences are the unseen forces that lie beneath the surface of everyday life, molding the way we think, act, and interact with others, often without our awareness. The first consequence of living someone else's life is the gradual erosion of your sense of self. Imagine being a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble, but instead of creating something unique, you are following a blueprint dictated by someone else. Over time, you begin to lose your sense of individuality, becoming more and more of a reflection of the expectations placed upon you. You don't know where you end and where others begin. This psychological erosion isn't as obvious as a sudden crisis. It's subtle, creeping in through the cracks of your daily life. You may feel restless, disconnected, or numb, as though something essential is missing, but you can't put your finger on it. Your external achievements, your career success, your material wealth, your social standing become hollow because they were never aligned with your true values. They were part of a narrative imposed upon you. The result? A constant, gnawing sense of emptiness. Neurologically, this disconnect between your true self and the life you lead creates a state of cognitive dissonance, where your internal beliefs and external actions are out of alignment. The brain, in its effort to reduce discomfort, seeks to justify this discrepancy, often by rationalizing decisions or suppressing feelings of dissatisfaction. Over time, however, this can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and depression. Studies have shown that when people feel that their life is dictated by others, they experience a loss of autonomy, a psychological need that, when unmet, leads to negative emotional and physical outcomes. In fact, a profound study conducted by psychologists Deci and Ryan on self-determination theory revealed that individuals who lack a sense of autonomy in their lives are more likely to experience depression, burnout, and a lack of fulfillment. The idea that your choices and actions are controlled by external forces, be they societal, familial, or cultural, can lead to a sense of powerlessness that erodes mental health. But the consequences don't stop at the individual level. The societal consequences of living a life shaped by external forces are just as profound. Think about it. When the majority of people are living out a prescribed set of values, following an unquestioned formula for success, the collective consciousness of a society becomes locked into a singular, narrow worldview. The result is a culture of conformity, where creativity, individuality, and true freedom are suppressed in favor of maintaining the status quo. This phenomenon was explored by Aldous Huxley in his dystopian novel Brave New World. Huxley's portrayal of a society that sacrifices individuality for the sake of comfort and stability is a stark reflection of the consequences of societal conditioning. In this world, the individual is no longer capable of true freedom. Instead, they are bound by their own compliance with a system that dictates their desires, their behavior, and even their thoughts. Huxley's world might seem exaggerated, but in many ways, it reflects the quiet, insidious shaping of desires and actions that we see in our own world. The constant push for uniformity, whether through consumerism, social media, or cultural trends, results in a society where the collective imagination is stifled. From a social perspective, living someone else's life also perpetuates inequality and injustice. When people are conditioned to chase the same hollow ideals, they inadvertently perpetuate systems that keep the status quo intact. The powerful and wealthy continue to benefit from a society that values external success, material gain, and social validation, while those on the fringes are left behind, struggling to live up to a standard that was never meant for them. This cycle of inequality is sustained because the true drivers of human potential, creativity, authenticity, and connection, are buried beneath layers of societal expectations and superficial goals. One of the most dangerous unseen consequences of this conditioning is that it creates a culture where people are not encouraged to ask the most important question of all. What does it mean to truly live? Instead, we are taught to chase after success, status, and approval. But without this deeper understanding of life's true meaning, society becomes a hamster wheel of superficial achievement, one that spins faster and faster, pulling everyone along with it. This brings us back to the philosophical implications of the life you've been living. As Sartre so aptly put it, we are condemned to be free, yet most of us choose to live in bad faith. The choice to live authentically, to live a life that is truly yours, requires immense courage. It requires rejecting the comforts of conformity and embracing the unknown. But what happens when society itself is structured in such a way that it actively discourages authentic living? How do you break free from a system that doesn't just shape your desires? It actively suppresses your true potential. The most terrifying part of all this is the possibility that you may never truly break free. The societal conditioning is so deeply embedded, so pervasive, that it can feel impossible to escape. You might find yourself trapped in a cycle of quiet resignation, where every day feels like a repetition of the last. Your mind, your thoughts, and your desires become like the pre-programmed movements of a robot, on autopilot, endlessly repeating the same patterns, unable to break free. This is the unseen power of the life that isn't truly yours. It shapes your thoughts, your actions, and even your potential in ways that you might not even be aware of. But the more you recognize this power, the more you awaken to its influence. The real question now is, what will you do with this awareness? You've seen the unseen forces that have shaped your life, the consequences of living someone else's narrative, and the ways society and your own mind have conspired to steer you away from your authentic self. But here's the most crucial realization. It doesn't have to be this way. This isn't a sentence. It's an awakening, a spark of possibility. To break free from the chains of conditioned desires and to reclaim your life as your own is not only possible, it is your birthright. But the path to freedom requires a radical shift, a rebellion against the very systems that have quietly dictated your existence. It requires confronting the greatest lie you've ever told yourself, that you have no other choice. The first step in this rebellion is a shift in perspective. Rather than seeing your life as a series of external expectations you must fulfill, begin to see it as an uncharted journey, one where you are the creator of your own path. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that you are free to define what success means for you. No more measuring your worth against society's standards. No more chasing fleeting desires that leave you feeling hollow. You have the power to rewrite the script. But this doesn't happen overnight. It requires a deep, uncomfortable process of self-discovery. It's about stripping away the layers of conditioning that have been placed on you over the years. You have to begin asking the hard questions. What do I actually want? What am I afraid to admit to myself? What have I been ignoring because it's easier to follow the crowd. The key here is honesty with yourself, an honesty that might feel terrifying at first. For years, you've been living in a dream. You've convinced yourself that the life you're living is what you've always wanted, when in reality, it's been built from the expectations of others. Now, you must begin the process of waking up. This isn't an easy task, but it is a necessary one. To live authentically means to embrace discomfort, to push through the societal pressures that tell you that your true desires are irrelevant or selfish. This awakening is what philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre called authentic existence. Sartre argued that in order to live authentically, one must confront the fact that life has no inherent meaning, and thus, it is our responsibility to create meaning for ourselves. Sartre's vision of freedom wasn't a simple escape from society's constraints. It was a confrontation with the fact that we, as individuals, are radically free to shape our own identities, regardless of what the world tells us. This radical freedom requires you to acknowledge your agency and take full responsibility for the life you are creating. It's not about waiting for permission or approval. It's about living without the validation of others. To break free, you must also reject the allure of conformity. Society often tries to pull us back into the fold, telling us that we need to fit in order to survive. But the truth is that conformity is the enemy of individuality. Think of the great rebels, the visionaries who refused to conform. Albert Einstein, Frida Kahlo, James Baldwin. These were individuals who chose to live their lives on their own terms, unshackled by the expectations of others. They weren't born with an innate understanding of their own freedom. They had to cultivate it, often at great personal cost. But their ability to rebel against the status quo allowed them to create work, ideas, and lives that still influence and inspire us today. Let's consider the concept of nonconformity more practically. Breaking free doesn't always mean abandoning everything in your life and starting from scratch. It might not involve quitting your job or rejecting all of society's rules. Instead, it begins in the small, quiet spaces of your life by questioning the choices you've made, challenging your automatic responses to societal pressures, and slowly peeling back the layers of conditioned behavior. Start by challenging the way you measure success. Look at the systems in your life, your job, your relationships, your lifestyle choices. How much of it is driven by societal expectations? How much of it is rooted in a deeper, personal calling? Begin to reimagine success not as external validation, but as a life lived authentically. A life that resonates with your core values. What does success look like for you, apart from what society tells you it should be? A key part of this rebellion is also about redefining what it means to be free. Freedom isn't just about doing whatever you want whenever you want. It's about choosing to live a life that reflects your true values and desires, even if that means facing discomfort and challenge. Viktor Frankl's work in Man's Search for Meaning illustrates this point profoundly. He argued that true freedom comes not from the absence of suffering, but from our ability to choose how we respond to suffering. In the most extreme conditions, such as in a concentration camp, Frankl discovered that those who found meaning in their suffering were the ones who survived and thrived. Freedom, in his view, was the power to choose how we create meaning in any given situation. This process of rebellion is not for the faint of heart. It requires courage. It means questioning the status quo, risking disapproval, and facing the unknown. But as you begin to unearth your true desires, as you reject the life others have planned for you, you will start to feel the liberation of living authentically. The more you align your actions with your inner truth, the more at peace you will feel. The weight of living someone else's life will begin to lift, and in its place will come a sense of clarity and purpose. As you step into this new way of being, you will discover that you don't need to prove yourself to anyone. The external markers of success will lose their grip on you, and you will find joy in the simple, meaningful aspects of life. You will stop measuring yourself by how much you've accumulated, how much you've achieved, or how others see you. Instead, you'll measure success by the authenticity of your journey, the depth of your connections, and the alignment between your actions and your values. The rebellion is not about fighting against the world. It's about fighting for your right to live a life that is truly yours. A life that speaks to who you are, not who others have told you to be. And once you break free, once you begin to truly live, you'll see the world in a completely new light. You'll no longer be a passive participant in a story written by someone else. You'll be the author of your own narrative, and the possibilities for your life will be limitless. Now that you've rebelled, now that you've begun to peel back the layers of conditioning, to reject the expectations that once held you captive, you're left standing at the precipice of a profound realization. You've broken free from the societal chains that bound you, and the path before you is your own to create. But as you look forward, there's something more, something deeper, that begins to emerge from the darkness of your newfound freedom. This truth is uncomfortable, yet deeply liberating. It is the ultimate realization that will forever change the way you see yourself and the world around you. The truth is this: you never truly needed to break free because you were never truly bound. It's not that the world or society were holding you hostage. It's that you were holding yourself hostage by adhering to a belief in your own limitation. All along, the boundaries you've been pushing against, the walls you've been trying to break through, were merely illusions created by your mind. You were never really trapped by the expectations of others. You were trapped by your own beliefs about what you could or couldn't do. You've been running in circles, chasing after a life that was never yours, because you forgot that the only thing that could ever confine you was your mind. The realization is nothing short of revolutionary. You are the architect of your own life. The power was always within you, even when you thought you were following someone else's script. What happens now is the most profound shift of all. True freedom is not about fighting the world. It's about coming home to yourself. It's about recognizing that the external world, with all of its expectations and judgments, has no real power over you. It only has the power you give it. The truth is that you can change your life, your choices, your path, simply by changing how you see yourself in relation to the world around you. This is the deep truth that philosophers like Sartre and Nietzsche were pointing to when they discussed the concept of radical freedom. Sartre's idea of existential freedom is the realization that we are not bound by any external meaning or truth. We are free to define our existence, to create our own purpose in a world that may seem indifferent or meaningless. In this freedom, there is a profound responsibility to choose, to create, and to live authentically. Nietzsche, in his call to embrace the Übermensch or Overman, wasn't asking us to transcend society's rules just for the sake of rebellion. He was asking us to transcend the idea that we are bound by anything outside ourselves. The Übermensch is the individual who creates meaning for their own life, who rises above societal constraints, and becomes the highest version of themselves by embracing their own inner strength. This is the ultimate freedom, to not only reject the life imposed upon you, but to fully embrace the boundless potential that resides within you. But even more than that, the ultimate truth is that there is no right path, no ultimate definition of success or happiness. The world is full of people running after the same illusions, the same societal markers, thinking that their success can be measured by wealth, status, or social approval. And yet, what is success if it doesn't align with your core self? What is happiness if it's based on someone else's expectations of what it should look like? You've spent your life adhering to rules that were never yours to begin with. Now you realize that true freedom comes when you stop measuring your worth against these arbitrary standards. When you stop looking outward and start looking inward, you begin to see that you've always had the power to create your own meaning. You are the creator of your reality, and the way you see the world is the lens through which it reflects back to you. At this point, the journey reaches a deeper level of clarity. You are free, not because you've broken free from society, but because you've realized that the chains were never real. They were made of ideas, projections, and assumptions, and they had no substance other than what you gave them. The only real obstacle in your life is your own mind, the mind that has been conditioned to believe that it is bound by external limitations. But now you've seen the truth. You are the creator, the artist of your own existence. And here's the most profound part. Living authentically is not a destination, it's a process. It's not about reaching a specific goal or achieving a particular form of success. It's about the ongoing creation of a life that is uniquely yours. It's about embracing the uncertainty, the messiness, the contradictions that come with living a fully engaged life. It's about allowing yourself to evolve, to change, to be imperfect, and still to be whole. As you stand at the threshold of this realization, you begin to understand that the world is not something to be conquered. It's something to be lived, to be experienced, and ultimately to be created. The power has always been in your hands, and now you are free to use it. The ultimate truth is this: there is no ultimate truth outside of you. You are the truth. You are the story. And now you get to write the ending. With this understanding, you can step forward into the unknown with courage and clarity. You are no longer a passive observer, caught in the illusions of others. You are an active participant in the unfolding of your own life, a life that is finally truly yours. And as you walk forward, liberated by this truth, you'll see that every step you take from this point on is a step toward creating a reality that is as limitless and boundless as your own potential. You have awakened. You have remembered who you are. And now, the world is yours to shape.